Good day, everyone. So today we are going to be talking about the fundamental concepts of fluids and electrolytes. And I am your instructor for this lesson, so Relly D. Castro. Okay, so what is fluid and electrolytes? So basically, when we talk about fluid and electrolytes, we talk about balance. Okay, or yung tinatawag natin na homeostasis. Because in the human body, maintaining balance or homeostasis is very crucial. Okay? Because much of the functioning of our body relies on fluid balance. Around 50 to 60% of our body's mass is actually composed of fluids. So understanding the fundamental concept is crucial for healthcare professionals such as nurses in assessing and managing patients with fluid and electrolyte imbalances. Ano? So marami kasi tayong nagiging disorder with regards to fluids and electrolyte balance. You know? So, as nurses, regular monitoring and prompt interventions are essential to maintain homeostasis and prevent complications. Okay. Fluid imbalances. At syempre, bago natin maintindihan yung fluid imbalances, pag-usapan muna natin yung normal fluid balance. So, ano yung sabihin ng fluid balance? So, kagaya ng binanggit ko sa inyo kanina, homeostasis. Homeostasis means balance, or it also means equilibrium. So when we talk about fluid balance, it is the equilibrium between fluid intake and output. So dapat balanse yung pumapasok na fluid, okay, at yung lumalabas also na fluid. So it is essential for maintaining blood volume, blood pressure, and various physiological functions. Sabi nga nila, kung ilan yung pumapasok, dapat ganun din yung lumalabas. Pero usually naman, there are certain factors that actually affect that. So fluid intakes comes from beverages, food, and metabolic processes. So yung intake natin, usually nanggagaling yan sa iniinom natin, kinakain natin, and even our own metabolism. While yung namang output natin o yung inilalabas natin, nangyayari ito through urine, sweat, feces, and also respiration. Okay? One of the another components na kailangan natin maintindihan is yung tinatawag natin na body fluid compartments. Asan ba yung mga fluids sa katawan natin? There are basically two types of compartments. So you have your ICF, which is known as your intracellular fluids, and you have your ECF, which is known as your extracellular fluids. So yung intracellular fluids, ito yung fluids na makikita nyo within the cell. Okay, nasa loob ng cell, ano? While yung extracellular fluids naman are the fluids outside of the cell. So there are also two types of ECF. Ano yun? You have your ECF na tinatawag natin na interstitial fluid. Ito yung mga fluid in between cells. Yung nasa labas ng cells, yung nasa pagitan, okay, ng mga cells natin. And the other type naman ng ECF is yung tinatawag natin na plasma. So yung plasma, it is within the blood vessels. That is the liquid part of your blood. Okay? Okay. Now, fluids move all throughout our body. Gumagalaw yan. Okay? At ang ginagamit niya is yung tinatawag natin na osmosis. So what is osmosis? So osmosis is the movement of water across a semi-permeable membrane. Okay? From an area of lower solute concentration to an area of higher solute concentration. So, iba to, ano? Kasi baka malito kayo. Osmosis is different from diffusion. Osmosis kasi, movement of water. Okay, movement of water yan. Okay? From an area of lower concentration to an area of higher concentration. While diffusion naman is the movement of particles. Okay? From an area of higher concentration naman to an area of lower concentration. So, huwag kayong malilito. Ano? So, sa fluid and electrolyte balance natin, ang usually na ginagamit natin for fluid movement is yung tinatawag natin osmosis. Ano? So, osmotic pressure also helps regulate the distribution of water between cells and the extracellular movement. Okay? Now, another thing na kailangan nyo maintindihan is yung tinatawag natin na hydrostatic pressure. Okay? So, fluid exert pressure. Yung hydrostatic pressure, ito yung force na ina-exert ng fluid at rest. Okay? So, in the context of fluid and electrolyte balances, it is essential for maintaining blood pressure. Okay? Still remember when we talk about the blood vessels before, yung blood exerts pressure on the wall of the veins and arteries. So, yun yung tinatawag natin na hydrostatic pressure. So, ginagamit natin ito in maintaining blood pressure and ensuring filtration of fluids across the capillary walls. Parang tinutulak niya, no? Yung fluids sa capillary walls, okay? In order to promote proper filtration. Okay? So, renal regulation naman, so the kidney, alam naman natin, ano? The kidney plays a crucial role in regulating fluid and electrolyte balance. Okay? Kasi kidney filters out the blood. Yeah? It filters out the blood. Okay? And it also adjusts urine production and also composition. Yung hormones din, such as your antidiuretic hormone and aldosterone na napuproduce na sa kidney, also influences these processes. Okay? Now, since we're talking about acid-base balance, so electrolytes, particularly yung bicarbonate natin, and also yung hydrogen ions natin, are involved in maintaining the body's acid-base balance. Ano? Kasi hindi lang naman din fluid ang kailangan nakabalance, pati yung acid and base natin should also be balanced. Unless na ayaw mo magkaroon ng acidosis at saka alkalosis. The pH of the body's fluids is tightly regulated to ensure proper cellular function. Okay. Okay, now let's talk about fluid imbalances. So, fluid imbalances occur when there is an abnormal distribution of water in the body. Okay, so kung kulang or sobra ng tubig sa katawan, that is already considered to be a fluid imbalance. So, these imbalances may lead to dehydration or overhydration depending on what type of imbalance are we talking about, both of which can have significant health consequences. So, meron tayong dalawang klase ng fluid imbalance, yung sobra at saka yung kulang. So, yung sobra, ito yung tinatawag natin na fluid volume excess or hypervolemia. At yung kulang naman, yung fluid volume deficit or hypovolemia. So, let's talk about fluid volume excess muna, yung sobra. So, fluid volume excess, also known as hypervolemia, occurs when there is an abnormal increase in the extracellular fluid in the body. Take note, increase in the ECF or extracellular fluid, not increase in the ICF. No? So, when there is an increase in ECF, ang tawag natin doon is fluid volume excess. So, this condition is usually characterized by an excess of both water and also your electrolytes. Pero this time, pag-usapan na lang muna natin yung water. So, saka natin pag-uusapan yung electrolytes later on. So, it can result from various underlying causes and may have implications for cardiovascular, respiratory, and renal functions. So, there are many possible causes. Pwedeng liver, heart, kidney disorder may cause fluid volume excess. And because of that, since the fluid is very essential in the functioning of the body, marami na siyang pwedeng maapektuhan pag sobra yung water sa katawan natin. Okay, so what are the culprit? What are the most causes, probable causes of fluid volume excess? So maraming possible causes. Una muna is heart failure. So bakit nagkakos ng fluid volume excess ang heart failure? So when there is heart failure, so weaken yung heart muscles. So pag weaken yung heart muscles, the heart has an inability to pump blood efficiently. So hindi niya napapump ng maayos yung blood, naiipon yung fluid, naiipon, causing fluid to accumulate in the circulatory system. So it may cause fluid volume excess. Another one is possibly kidney dysfunction, probable cause of fluid volume excess. So impaired kidney function can result in decreased excretion of water and sodium. Sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, the kidney is the organ responsible for urine formation para mailabas natin yung ating fluid. So pag nagkaroon ng disorder or dysfunction ng kidney natin, pwedeng hindi siya makapag-form ng urine. Therefore, hindi natin mailalabas yung fluid sa katawan natin. Maiipon yan. Okay? So, another one is liver cirrhosis. So, liver cirrhosis or any liver disease actually, can compromise the production of protein. Protein kasi, importante yan in maintaining fluid balance. So, pag may problema ang liver natin, pwede itong mag-cause ng liver ng hypervolemia. Okay, rather, hypervolemia or fluid volume excess. Okay, another one is excessive sodium intake. Okay, one of the things that you have to remember about sodium is where sodium goes, water goes. Kung nasa si sodium, pupunta doon sa tubig. So pag mataas ang sodium mo sa katawan, most likely, tataas din ang level ng tubig mo sa katawan. So high dietary sodium intake can lead to water retention, especially doon sa mga tao na sensitive doon sa sodium. Another cause of fluid volume excess is yung corticosteroids medication. Ano? Certain medications such as corticosteroids can cause fluid retention as a side effect of that particular type of drug. Okay? Another one is hormonal imbalances, particularly yung ating antidiuretic hormone saka yung aldosterone natin. Sabi ko nga sa inyo, itong dalawa na to is responsible also for fluid balance. So, pag nagkakaroon tayo ng imbalances sa hormone natin, pwede itong mag-cause ng hypervolemia or fluid volume excess. Okay, so what are the signs and symptoms ba pag merong fluid volume excess? Okay, so obviously, tumataas ang level ng tubig sa katawan natin. So, it is directly related doon sa mga lalabas sa signs and symptoms. Okay? So, unang-una na dyan yung edema. So, edema o yung swelling na tinatapag. Ano? Typically, makikita to doon sa ating extremities, sa legs and also sa ankles. And sometimes even the abdomen. Pero pag sa abdomen, ang tawag natin doon actually is ascites. Ano? So, another one is shortness of breath. Okay? So, itong shortness of breath, nangyayari ito kung nagkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag natin ng pulmonary edema, meaning pinasok na ng tubig. Kasi maraming pinasok na ng tubig yung lungs natin because marami tayong excess na fluid in the body. So, because of that, it can cause shortness of breath or difficulty of breathing. Another one is weight gain. Right? Obviously, rapid weight gain can be an indicator also of fluid retention. Kasi hindi mo nga na-eliminate, di ba? Hindi mo na-eliminate yung water sa katawan mo. So therefore, it can increase your weight. Okay? Another signs and symptoms na pwede nating makita is elevated blood pressure. Why? Because of an increase in blood volume. Pag tumataas ang fluid, directly na-apektuhan yung ating plasma. Plasma is also an ECF, extracellular fluids din yan. So therefore, pag tumataas yung plasma natin, tumataas yung fluid volume, dumadami yung dugo doon sa ating mga blood vessels which can cause an increase in blood pressure. Okay, another thing na makikita nyo pag mayroong fluid volume excess is yung jugular vein distension. Okay, ito para tong visible yung jugular vein kasi punong-puno siya ng fluid in the form of your plasma. So, yung jugular vein, kitang-kita yan, ano? So, distension of jugular vein in the neck may be visible, indicating increased venous pressure. And of course, yung bounding pulse, yung ramdam na ramdam mo, yung pulso. Okay, because yung tinatawag natin na stroke volume, usually kasi stroke volume, yung the amount of fluid na pinapump ng heart. So therefore, if there's an increased plasma due to fluid volume excess, lumalaki yung stroke volume natin. Because of that, mas ramdam yung pulso. So yung tinatawag natin ng bounding pulse. Okay? So these are some of the signs and symptoms ng tao na mayroong fluid volume excess. Now, what are the diagnoses? How do we diagnose this? Ano? So, una muna is clinical assessment. So, basically, you have to perform your physical examination. So, ang tinitingnan natin dito ay checking for edema. Okay, so edema, syempre, sabi nga natin, one of the signs of symptoms of fluid volume excess is your edema. Okay, you also have to check for lung sounds. Okay, lung sounds natin for a possibility of pulmonary edema and also the blood pressure. Kasi increased blood pressure may be an indication of a fluid volume excess. For the laboratory test naman, tinetest natin rito yung level of electrolytes and also the kidney functioning. So imaging, chest x-ray, para makita natin kung meron na bang accumulation of fluid in the lungs. Echocardiogram to evaluate the heart and also the heart and the lungs. Okay? For the treatment, syempre, we have to eliminate the fluids. So, pwede tayo magbigay ng diuretic medication dito. Ano? So, it may increase urine output to reduce fluid volume para ma-eliminate yung fluid sa katawan. You also have dietary modifications. So, pag dietary modification, you should restrict sodium intake. Kagaya nga ng binanggit ko. Pag mataas ang sodium, mataas ang tubig. Kasi where sodium goes, water goes. So, of course, fluid restriction, limiting overall fluid intake. Ano? Bawasan natin yung intake natin kasi i-increase nga natin, we're trying to increase the output no? So dapat bawasan din natin yung intake niya para mabalansin natin yung fluid na nasa loob ng katawan. Okay, and of course, treating the underlying cause. Okay, so we have to determine ano ba ang underlying cause, bakit siya nagkaroon ng fluid volume excess? Due to heart failure ba? Due to kidney disorder ba? Due to liver disorder ba? So if we determine the cause, we have to treat the cause. Okay? Kung liver yan, we treat liver disorder, we treat kidney disorder, or we treat heart failure. When we manage that, we are going to be managing also the fluid volume excess. Okay, now as nurses, ano ang ating possible intervention? Okay, una muna, of course, we have to monitor the vital signs. Ano? So ano yung monitor natin usually? Blood pressure, heart rate, and also respiratory rate. Ito tatlo kasi na ito, importante ito para malaman natin kung merong fluid volume excess. Blood pressure, so pag mataas ang blood pressure, may indicate fluid volume excess. Yung heart rate, pag mabilis yung tibok ng puso. Okay, yung pulse, pag bounding pulse, can be also indication of fluid volume excess. And also respiratory rate, para malaman natin if there's a possibility of pulmonary edema. Because pag mataas ang respiratory rate and merong DOB, difficulty of breathing, it may indicate a pulmonary edema. Okay, kailangan din natin monitor yung daily weight niya. Okay, so sabi nga natin kanina sa signs and symptoms, pag merong fluid volume excess, possible na merong weight gain. So para malaman natin if meron pa rin fluid volume excess, hypervolemia, kailangan natin siyang timbangin araw-araw. We have to monitor dyan. And of course, yung walang kamatayang INO, okay, intake and output to assess fluid balance. Kailangan natin i-assess yan. So kailangan, hindi nagkakalalayo yung input, yung pumapasok na fluid, at saka yung output, yung lumalabas na fluid. Okay, another one thing that we have to take in consideration as nurses is yung proper positioning. So, ang maganda position natin is the leg should be elevated to promote venous return and also possibility to reduce edema. Okay, and of course, patient education, providing information on dietary sodium restrictions and medication adherence. Okay? Okay, so what are the possible complications ng tao na merong fluid volume excess? Number one is respiratory distress. Severe fluid volume excess can lead to pulmonary edema. Pwede nang pasukin ng tubig ang lungs, which can cause respiratory compromise, difficulty of breathing. Okay, another one is hypertension. As I've told, tumataas ang blood volume. Pag mataas ang blood volume, meaning tumataas ang pressure doon sa loob ng blood vessels, which can result into hypertension. And of course, cardiac strain. Sa dami ng pinapump na dugo ng ating puso, because of increased blood volume due to hypervolemia, pwedeng ma-overwork ang puso natin. Ano? Okay? Which may lead to cardiac hypertrophy. Okay, now let's talk about fluid volume deficit, also known as your hypovolemia. So ito naman yung kabaliktaran ng hypervolemia. No? So fluid volume deficit nga pala is also known as your dehydration. And it occurs when there is a decrease in the extracellular fluid in the body. So, konti yung ECF. So, this condition is characterized by insufficient fluid to meet the body's need, leading to a disruption in normal physiologic function. So, ganun pa rin, ano? So, since the fluid plays a vital part in the body's normal functioning, pag kinukulang yan, pwede maapektuhan yung physiological functions natin, ano? So, dehydration can result from various causes, and it's associated with loss of water and also even electrolytes. So what are the possible causes of fluid volume deficit? Okay, number one is inadequate fluid intake, yung hindi ka umiinom. Okay, so not drinking enough water, especially in cases of reduced thirst perception or limited access to water, may cause dehydration. You know? So another one is excessive fluid loss. So increased loss of fluids through vomiting, or severe diarrhea, even excessive sweating. Pag pinagpapawisan ka tapos hindi mo nire-replenish ng fluids and electrolytes, it may cause a fluid volume deficit. And even high fever. Okay, high fever can cause a fluid volume deficit. Another probable cause is yung increased urination, ihi ka ng ihi, probably because of, let's say, diabetes. Kasi ang diabetes, merong polyuria yan, ihi ng ihi. Since na ang output mo ang taas, tapos yung intake mo ay hindi nababago, so it means that it may cause a fluid volume deficit. Okay, another one is burn. Okay, pag merong severe burn, third degree burn, ano? So, nawawala yung layer ng skin, yung outer layer ng skin, which may increase yung evaporation of fluid through the skin. So, it can cause also a fluid volume deficit. Blood loss, okay, hemorrhage, or other forms of significant blood loss can also lead to a reduction in blood volume, which may lead to fluid volume deficit. Gastrointestinal conditions like malabsorption syndrome or cholera, which may cause severe diarrhea, can cause fluid loss through the digestive tract. So those are the probable causes of fluid volume deficit. Now, what are the signs and symptoms naman? Okay, number one is thirst. Okay, so increased sensation of thirst is a primary response to dehydration. Of course, di ba? So, normal naman na sa atin yan, ano? So, pag ikaw, bumababa yung fluid mo, natitrigger yung response na thirst. Okay? So, dark yellow urine, concentrated urine with a dark color indicates reduced water content. So, pag medyo dark yung kulay ng dark yellow, dark yellow yung kulay ng urine mo, mataas yung concentration nun, it means kulang ka sa tubig. Okay, dry skin and also mucous membrane. Dry skin yung parang pag yung naging parang scaly yung skin natin, at yung loob ng mouth naman natin is sticky. Okay, parang malagkit yung mucous membrane. It may be an indication of fluid volume deficit. And also sunken eyes, ano? Parang lubog yung mga mata. The eyes may appear sunken due to reduced fluid in the tissues kasi umaatras yung mga tissues natin, ano? Okay, another one is weakness and fatigue. Reduced fluid volume can affect energy levels and even muscle function. Okay, dizziness or lightheadedness. This is also known as your orthostatic hypotension because of low blood pressure. Kasi mababa yung blood volume mo. Pag mababa yung blood volume, it means that mababa ang blood pressure, which can cause dizziness or lightheadedness. Okay? Rapid heart rate, mabilis ang tibok ng puso. Kasi kailangan mag-compensate ng puso natin because of the reduced blood volume. So those are the signs and symptoms of your fluid volume deficit. Okay, for the diagnosis naman, how do we diagnose fluid volume deficit? So for the clinical assessment, physical examination pa rin. So including checking for signs of dehydration such as skin turgor. Skin turgor yung parang pinipinch natin tapos tinitingnan natin kung babalik agad. Okay, pag hindi siya babalik agad, parang malambot, hindi siya agad bumabalik yung pink skin natin. So it may be indication of fluid volume deficit natin, ano? And also yung moisture ng mouth. We try to assess it also because of pag sticky yan, or dry yan, it may be indication of a fluid volume deficit. Pag laboratory test naman, tinitingnan natin yung concentration ng blood urea nitrogen or BUN at saka yung CREA. Yung kasi BUN and CREA, that is basically waste product yan na pinuproduce ng kidney natin. Okay? So pag mataas ang concentration yan, it may be indication of fluid volume deficit. Okay? Urinalysis, examining urine, concentration, and specific gravity. Pag mataas ang concentration ng urine from urinalysis, may be an indication of fluid volume deficit also. And in some cases, imaging studies such as chest X-ray may also be performed to assess fluid status. Okay, for the treatment naman, pag minor lang, pwede na dyan ang oral dehydration. Ano? Oral rehydration solutions containing electrolytes and water may be sufficient. Pag medyo severe, kailangan na nating i-IV yan. Okay, or kailangan natin magbigay ng intravenous fluids. Most commonly ginagamit dyan, D5-NSS because it contains not just fluids and it also contains electrolytes also for fluid replacement. Okay, and of course, we have to treat the underlying cause also. Kailangan we have to determine what is the cause, bakit siya nagkakaroon ng fluid volume deficit. For example, halimbawa, pag merong diabetes siya at merong polyuria yan, we have to treat diabetes. Para mawala yung polyuria, para mawala yung fluid volume deficit. Okay, as nurses, what is our responsibility? First is fluid replacement. Okay, alam naman na lahat yan. We should administer fluid based on the severity of the hydration. Siyempre, as order, huwag kakalimutan. Monitoring vital signs, regular assessment of blood pressure. Pag fluid volume deficit, usually hypotension, meron yan. Increased heart rate yan, and ang respiratory rate niyan is medyo mabagal. Okay, oral hygiene, since na dry yung kanyang mucous membrane sa mouth niya, so we have to provide oral care to alleviate dryness and also discomfort. Okay, so assisting with ambulation, since that there is fatigue, okay, due to fluid volume deficit, so we have to assist in ambulation to prevent falls and individual experiencing dizziness due to hypotension, orthostatic hypotension specifically, kailangan natin silang assist to avoid further injury. And of course, education. We have to provide patient education, educating patients on the importance of adequate fluid intake and also signs of dehydration. We have to educate our patient. For the complications, ano yung mga possible complications pag merong dehydration? Number one is electrolyte imbalances. So dehydration can lead to imbalances in electrolytes such as sodium and potassium. Okay, possibly decrease sodium and potassium din yun. Ano? Renal dysfunction, prolonged dehydration can also affect functions of the kidney. Kaya nga yung BUN at saka yung REA tumataas because of that. Possibility na nagkakaroon ng renal dysfunction due to dehydration. And of course, yung delikado, hypovolemic shock. Because mababa ang blood volume. Ano? Severe dehydration may lead to a decrease in blood volume which may cause hypovolemic shock. Okay, so tapos na tayo doon sa fluid imbalances. Ano? I hope you understand the concept of fluid imbalances. No? Pag-usapan naman natin yung other part nun, which is your electrolyte imbalances. Before we start talking about the different imbalances, pag-usapan muna natin, ano ba yung electrolytes? Okay? So basically, electrolytes are ions. So ions are charged particles. So they conduct electrical current in the body fluids. The common electrolytes includes the sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chloride, phosphate, and also bicarbonate. Now, what's the role? Ano ba ang role ng mga electrolytes sa functioning ng normal functioning ng katawan natin? Ano? So, electrolytes, their number one role is nerve impulse transmission. That is their number one role. Almost all type of electrolyte has the ability to conduct electrical impulses which ginagamit natin in the form of a nerve impulse transmission. So besides that, syempre, pag mayroong electrical impulses, so kasama na dyan yung muscle contraction. Ano? Aside from those electrical transmission or nerve transmission, okay, so importante na ng electrolytes in maintaining acid-base balance and also yung tinatawag natin osmotic regulation. Now, kagaya nga nung binanggit ko, all electrolytes usually ginagamit natin for electrical impulses, but aside from that, meron silang mga specific functions na special to them. So isa-isayin natin yun. Ano? Sodium. So sodium maintains fluid balance, nerve function, and helps with muscle contraction. Ano? Sodium, ito yata yung pinakamaraming amount ng electrolytes sa katawan natin. We also have potassium naman. So potassium is also essential for nerve impulses, particularly cardiac muscle. Ano? Muscle contraction, cardiac muscle contraction, and maintaining also fluid balance. Pag calcium naman, vital for bone and teeth formation. Importante rin yung calcium when it comes to blood clotting, nerve function, and also muscle contraction. Magnesium naman involves in muscle and nerve function, bone formation, and also even energy metabolism. Chloride helps maintain fluid balance, plays a role in digestion as part of your hydrochloric acid, okay, HCl, and it is involved in also acid-base balance. Phosphate, important for bone and teeth formation, similar to calcium, energy metabolism, and also acid-base balance. Pag bicarbonate naman, acid-base balance siya, help maintains the body's pH. And sulfate naman plays a role in protein synthesis and is involved in certain detoxification process. Now, when we talk about electrolyte imbalances, it occurs when there is an abnormal concentration of ions in the body fluids. Pwedeng mataas, pwedeng mababa. Hyper pag mataas, hypo pag mababa. So, electrolytes including sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chloride, phosphate, and bicarbonate, as I've told you before, play a crucial role in various physiological process. Number one na nga dyan, yung nerve function and muscle contraction, and of course, the acid-base balances. Okay, now let's talk about the different electrolyte imbalances. Ano? Let's start off with sodium first, particularly yung hypernatremia. So ano ba yung tinatawag natin na hypernatremia? So hypernatremia is a condition characterized by an elevated concentration of sodium ion. So mataas ang sodium sa katawan natin. Ano? So as we all know, sodium is a crucial electrolyte that plays a significant role in maintaining water balances and also proper cell function, particularly also yung ating nerve impulses. So hypernatremia occurs when there is an excess of sodium relative to water in the body. This imbalance can lead to dehydration and various physiological differences. So, what are the probable causes of hypernatremia? Bakit pa tayo nagkakaroon ng hypernatremia? Number one, inadequate water intake. Pag konti yung pumapasok na tubig sa katawan natin, kagaya nga ng binanggit natin kanina, pwede itong mag-cause ng fluid volume deficit or dehydration. So, pag ganun, tumataas ang concentration ng mga electrolytes. Okay? At isa na doon yung ating sodium, which may cause hypernatremia. No? So, insufficient water intake, especially in situation where thirst is not adequately quenched. So, another one naman is excessive sodium intake naman. Yung mahilig kang kumain ng maalat. Okay? So, consuming a diet high in sodium, particularly when not accompanied by other water intake, may cause hypernatremia. So, dapat kasi balance yung water at saka yung sodium. Pag nagkokonti yung sodium natin, rather, yung water natin, tumataas yung concentration ng sodium. Okay, so you also have impaired thirst mechanisms, so conditions where medications that affect the normal sensation of thirst leading to decreased water consumption. So there are certain situations wherein na decrease yung sensation of taste natin, probably because of intake of medication, which in turn may not cause us to drink water. So pag konti yung intake ng water, inadequate water intake, tumataas ang concentration ng sodium, leading to hypernatremia. Okay, another one is excessive water loss. So, for example, fever, excessive sweating, polyuria due to diabetes, may cause loss of water, therefore increased concentration of sodium. So you also have hypertonic intravenous fluid, rapid administration of hypertonic saline solution. Okay, yung mga hypertonic solution natin, D5-NSS, okay, can also increase the level of sodium in the body, which may in turn cause hypernatremia. Okay, so what are the symptoms of hypernatremia? So number one is thirst. So there is an increased sensation of thirst, which is a very clear symptoms of your hypernatremia because mababa ang level ng ating water. You also have a dry mucous membrane, which may cause a dry mouth, saka yung sticky saliva. Again, mababa ang level ng water. And even decreased urination, reduced urine output due to kidneys conserving water. Another one is dark yellow urine, concentrated urine with a high specific gravity because of high concentration of your sodium and decreased level of water, tumataas yung concentration doon sa may urine natin, which in turn can cause a dark yellow coloration of the urine. There is also confusion and agitation, so changes in mental status, irritability, and also confusion. So seizures in extreme cases, extreme and severe cases, so may cause or may lead or may cause neurological symptoms including also seizure. For the diagnosis, so number one, ginagawa natin dito blood test para malaman natin yung level of sodium sa dugo natin. Okay? So urine test, the urine is also test, urinalysis, para malaman natin yung concentration naman doon sa urine ng sodium. Clinical assessment, so evaluation of symptoms and signs such as thirst, dry mucous membrane, and also changes in mental status are also considered during the diagnostic process. Okay, for the treatment naman, number one dito, fluid replacement. So, correction involves gradual rehydration with isotonic or hypotonic fluids. So, tayo gagamit ng hypertonic, ano? Kasi nga hypertonic solution contains electrolytes. So, dapat isotonic lang or even hypotonic fluids. So, rapid correction can lead to cerebral edema naman. So, gradual dapat yung rehydration natin. Ano? So, don't do it rapidly. So, identifying and treating the underlying cause. Again, same as before, most cases, may rason kung bakit tumataas ang sodium. So, if we treat the underlying cause, we treat also hypernatremia. So, addressing the root causes, whether it's related to inadequate water intake, excessive sodium intake, or underlying medical condition, should be treated first para mas madaling i-treat yung hypernatremia. Okay, so as nurses, what is our responsibility? Number one is monitoring. So, monitoring fluid balances, regular assessment of fluid intake and output. So, I&O, titingnan natin yan. Encouraging oral hydration, promoting increased oral fluid intake para mabalance yung fluid at saka yung level ng sodium. Assessing mental status, So monitoring for changes in mental status and neurological symptoms. So since the patient may exhibit mental instability such as seizure, so we also have to assess the mental status of the patient. And of course, hindi pa rin nawawala, educating patients. So providing proper information on the importance of maintaining proper hydration and recognizing signs of also of dehydration. Now, for possible complications ng hypernatremia, so there is neurological complications. So severe hypernatremia can lead to cerebral dehydration, which can cause neurological symptoms such as seizures and even coma in severe cases. So there is also possibility of renal dysfunction because of prolonged imbalances can affect renal functioning and even cardiovascular effects. Hypernatremia can impact blood pressure and also cardiac function. So basically, pag may hypernatremia ka, bumababa yung level ng tubig natin sa katawan, which may in turn causes hypovolemia or fluid volume deficit, which in turn can cause a decrease in blood pressure. Okay? Pwede maapektuhan yung cardiac function. Okay, now, pag-usapan naman natin yung hyponatremia. So, ano ba tinatawag natin na hyponatremia? So, hyponatremia is a condition characterized by a lower than normal concentration of sodium ions in the blood naman. So, this time naman, mababa naman yung level ng sodium or yung concentration ng sodium sa katawan natin mababa. So, as I've said, sodium is a vital electrolyte that plays a crucial role in maintaining fluid balance, nerve function, and also muscle contraction. So, nitronatremia can actually occur when there is an imbalance between water and sodium levels in the body. So, usually, pag mababa ang concentration ng sodium level, possibly because tumataas yung level ng tubig natin or a person is experiencing yung hypovolemia or fluid volume excess, leading to an excess of water relative to sodium. Okay? So, what are the probable causes of hyponatremia? Unang-una, excessive water intake. So, drinking large amounts of water, especially in a short period without sufficient sodium intake, can cause a decrease in the concentration of sodium in the body, which in turn can cause hyponatremia. Another one naman is inadequate sodium intake. Mababa naman yung sodium intake nyo. Following a low sodium diet, not consuming enough sodium containing foods may also lead to hyponatremia kasi mababa yung concentration ng sodium. Okay, another one is impaired excretion of water. Conditions such as continued dysfunction or syndrome of inappropriate antidiuretic hormone can lead to impaired water excretion also. Meaning, pag hindi ka na iihi, nagkakaroon tayo ng fluid retention sa katawan natin, meaning because of that, bumababa yung concentration ng sodium kasi tumataas yung level ng fluid. Okay, another one is diuretic use naman. Ito naman, pag ihi ka naman ng ihi. Kasi pag ihi ka naman ng ihi, sumasama naman yung sodium doon sa urine pag nilalabas natin yan. So because of that, again, bababa na naman ang concentration ng sodium sa katawan natin. Heart failure and liver cirrhosis may also conditions that result in fluid retention can also dilute sodium concentration. So pag meron kang heart failure and liver cirrhosis, balikan nyo yung discussion natin about fluid volume excess, tumataas ang fluid sa katawan. Because of that, nadadilute yung sodium. So bumababa yung concentration ng sodium sa katawan natin. You also have adrenal insufficiency. So inadequate production of adrenal hormones can affect also sodium balance. So what are the symptoms of hyponatremia? So you have nausea and vomiting, mga gastrointestinal symptoms. Okay, you also have neurological symptoms such as your headache, confusion, and also altered mental status. Severe hyponatremia may even lead to seizure. So neuromuscular symptoms also include muscle cramp and weaknesses. Okay, you also have fatigue and even edema or swelling. Ano? Okay, so for the diagnosis, again, ang tinitingnan natin dito, number 1 is the serum sodium level in the blood. So that's when kukonduct tayo ng blood test. So titingnan natin yung level ng sodium sa dugo natin kung mababa ba siya para ma-determine natin if there's already a presence of hyponatremia. Urine test, ganun din. We are trying to look for the level of concentration of the urine kung mababa ba yung level ng mababa or mataas yung level ng sodium doon sa urine. And sa clinical assessment naman, we try to evaluate yung symptoms sa pinag-usapan natin kanina, including neurological status and even fluid balances. Okay? For the treatment, fluid retention. Yun naman yan, ano? So, mild cases may be managed by restricting fluid intake since na mataas yung, mababa yung concentration ng sodium sa katawan natin, possibly due to dilution of your sodium dahil mataas ang fluid or nagkakaroon tayo ng fluid retention. So, isang ginagawa dyan, nagkakaroon tayo ng restriction of fluid intake. Okay, bawal mo na siyang uminom ng any fluids. So, you also have hypertonic saline solution. In severe cases, pag sobrang baba, kailangan natin mag-introduce ngayon ng hypertonic saline infusion doon sa pasyente para mapataas natin yung kanyang sodium level. Okay? Another one is, of course, hindi pa rin nawawala, treatment of underlying cause. So, we have to determine bakit ba siya nagkakaroon ng hypernatremia. Hyponatremia. So, possible due to underlying medical condition yan. So, we have to determine first what is the underlying medical condition, treat that condition, and then we can proceed with the treatment for hyponatremia. Ano ba yung mga possible underlying causes? Pwedeng heart failure, pwedeng liver cirrhosis because both of them can cause fluid retention. Pag merong fluid retention, bumababa yung concentration ng sodium leading to hyponatremia. So if we treat heart failure and liver cirrhosis, matitreat natin yung fluid retention leading to the treatment of hyponatremia. Okay, so as nurses, what is our responsibility? So una muna, you have to monitor the intake and output of your patient. So regular assessment of the fluid balance. Neurological monitoring din tayo kasi there is a possibility that the patient may suffer from seizure. Okay, so in severe cases lang naman, and also patient education. So providing information on dietary sodium intake and the importance of balanced fluid intake. Okay. So what else? So for the complication, there is a possibility of cerebral edema. Paano ito nagkakaroon? Rapid correction of hyponatremia. So kung magbibigay tayo ng hypertonic solution to correct hyponatremia, it should be done gradually. Kasi pag binadali natin yan, it may lead to cerebral edema, which may in turn cause neurological complication. Okay, so another complication is seizure. Severe hyponatremia can also increase the risk of seizure, mental status. Okay, and of course, respiratory arrest. In extreme cases, respiratory failure and arrest can also occur pag masyadong mababa ang sodium, concentration ng sodium sa katawan natin. Okay, now let's talk about potassium naman. So when it comes to electrolyte imbalances, when we are talking about potassium, dalawang klase yan. You have your hyperkalemia and hypokalemia. So pag-usapan muna natin yung hyperkalemia. So hyperkalemia is basically a condition characterized by elevated levels of potassium in the blood. Mataas ang potassium sa dugo. Because of that, it can disrupt functions which leads to serious health issues. Class, I cannot overemphasize this because potassium is one of the primary electrolyte na ginagamit natin for cardiac contraction. So, pag potassium ang nagkaroon ng imbalance, pwede maapektuhan ang puso, which may cause arrhythmia, which can be very dangerous. Okay? So, what are the possible causes of hyperkalemia? So, bakit ba nagkakaroon ng hyperkalemia? Una, impaired kidney function. So, reduced excretion of potassium in the kidney is a common cause, often associated with chronic kidney diseases. If potassium is not eliminated through the kidney, maiipon yan doon sa dugo natin, which it can cause an increase in its concentration, leading to hyperkalemia. So, the use of medications such as your ACE inhibitors and also your NSAID can also increase the level of potassium. And of course, excessive potassium intake, consuming an abnormally high amount of potassium often through supplements or salt supplements. Contrary to popular belief, hindi mo naman kailangan kumain ng sobrang daming saging para magkaroon ng hyperkalemia. Okay, so it's not that it's not that possible. Kahit kumain ka ng maraming saging, hindi ka magkakaroon ng hyperkalemia. But if you're taking supplements, potassium supplements, at nasobrahan mo yung potassium supplements mo na yun, it may cause hyperkalemia. Okay? You also have hemolysis. Hemolysis is a destruction of the red blood cells. Pag nagkakaroon kasi ng destruction of red blood cells, nagre-release yun ng potassium dun sa bloodstream natin, which can, in turn, can increase its concentration. You also have metabolic acidosis. So, pag meron tayong metabolic acidosis or accumulation of acid in the body, can shift potassium from the cells into the bloodstream. So, pag may metabolic acidosis, yung potassium doon sa cell natin, pwede siyang lumipat from the cell into the bloodstream, increasing the concentration of potassium in the bloodstream, causing hyperkalemia. You also have cellular damage. So, trauma, burns, or severe infection can cause cells to release potassium in the bloodstream. Pag nagkaroon ng destruction ng cell, any cell which contains potassium, of course, and then malilipat yung mga potassium na yun sa bloodstream natin, can cause hyperkalemia. Okay, so what are the symptoms of hyperkalemia? So you have neuromuscular symptoms including weakness and fatigue. You also have arrhythmias, irregular heartbeat. Binanggit ko nga sa inyo kanina. So hyperkalemia can affect the electrical conduction of the heart, leading to potentially life-threatening arrhythmias. You also have numbness and tingling, sensation of numbness or tingling, particularly in the extremities. Yung tusok-tusok na tinatawag natin, that is also indication of hyperkalemia. So you have difficulty of breathing. So severe hyperkalemia can impact respiratory muscles, such as your diaphragm, leading to difficulty of breathing. And you also have your nausea, vomiting, and even abdominal discomfort. So for the diagnosis, again, blood test pa rin to indicate the levels of potassium in the blood, kung ito ba ay mataas, para malaman natin kung meron ba or wala na hyperkalemia, or to assess the severity of hyperkalemia, kung gaano kataas yung level ng potassium sa dugo. You also have your electrocardiogram, your ECG, or even your EKG. Kasi sabi ko nga sa inyo, potassium is one of the electrolytes na ginagamit natin for cardiac contraction. So pag mataas ang potassium, pwede maapektuhan yung electrical conduction ng puso natin. So that is why electrocardiogram is also one of the diagnostic procedure na pwede nating gamitin para malaman natin if there is already arrhythmias or dysrhythmias. For the clinical assessment, so balikan nyo yung ating signs and symptoms kung presence ba yun. So evaluate natin yon and other related things related to potassium imbalances. For the treatment, calcium infusion. Bakit? Kasi ang intravenous administration of calcium gluconate or calcium chloride stabilizes the cardiac membrane in acute cases para mag-normalize yung tibok ng puso. Insulin and glucose also, administration of insulin and glucose to shift potassium into the cell para itataas natin yung level ng glucose doon sa dugo natin para yung potassium na nandoon sa dugo babalik doon sa cell. You also have your diuretics medication may be used to enhance potassium excretion by the kidney. Diuretics para mailabas yung excess na potassium. You also have your potassium binding medication such as your sulfonate para yung potassium babind sa sulfonate and then yung sulfonate ilalabas natin through urination also. Okay, now as nurses, what is our responsibility? First is monitoring electrolytes, regular assessment of potassium level and other electrolytes. So cardiac monitoring, so continuous monitoring of the ECG for signs of arrhythmias. Huwag kakalimutan yan, titingnan mabuti. You also have to tell the patient to restrict potassium intake, adjusting the diet to limit potassium intake. And of course, hindi pa rin nawawala yung ating patient education, providing information on medications and dietary restrictions to manage hyperkalemia. Okay, for the complications, so severe hyperkalemia can lead to dangerous cardiac arrhythmias including ventricular fibrillation. Again, I cannot emphasize this more. Potassium is very dangerous when it comes to cardiac functioning. So, kailangan natin tingnan if there is already the presence of arrhythmia in severe cases of hyperkalemia. So, cardiac arrest, extremely high potassium levels can cause the heart to stop beating. Okay, let that sink in. And even muscle paralysis in severe cases, hyperkalemia can lead to muscle paralysis. Okay, now let's talk about hypokalemia naman. So, hypokalemia is a condition characterized by lower than normal levels of potassium in the blood. Okay, so tatandaan nyo, potassium is an essential electrolyte that plays a crucial role in various physiological processes, including nerve conduction, muscle contraction, and, ang importante, maintaining heart rhythm. So, if a patient suffers from hypokalemia, it can lead to the disruption of these processes, resulting in a range of symptoms and potential complications. Okay, so what are the possible causes of hypokalemia? So you have gastrointestinal losses. So prolonged vomiting or diarrhea can lead to significant potassium loss. Meaning pag nagtatae, nagsusuka, nawawala yung potassium through diarrhea and vomiting, which can cause hypokalemia. You also have diuretic medications. So certain diuretics, especially loop, loop and thiazide diuretic can increase urinary potassium potassium excretion. Pag ihi ng ihi, like sodium kanina, even potassium na ilalabas din natin. Okay, so you also have inadequate dietary intake, yung mga diet low in potassium ang kinakain lagi. Okay, so yun, it can cause hypokalemia. So you also have your renal tubular acidosis, impaired renal acid-base regulation can also result in potassium loss. Okay, so aside from those, you also have magnesium deficiency. Okay, hindi lang potassium. Pag mababa ang magnesium mo, it can lead to hypokalemia. So magnesium is actually necessary for potassium uptake by the cells. So low magnesium levels can contribute also for hypokalemia. So si magnesium tumutulong siya for potassium uptake So pag mababa ang magnesium, mababa rin ang potassium uptake, which can lead to hypokalemia. Excessive sweating, conditions that lead to excessive sweating such as heavy physical activity or hyperhidrosis can cause hypokalemia. Even certain medications such as your antibiotics, corticosteroids, and laxative can contribute to potassium loss. So what are the signs and symptoms? So you have generalized weakness and fatigue, particularly in the muscles. Okay? So since mababa ang level ng potassium, so nerve impulses in the muscles decreases also, which may lead to muscle weakness and fatigue. You also have cramping and spasm, okay, especially doon sa legs. Okay, so you also have again arrhythmias, okay, or irregular heartbeat, since that it is potassium is one of the electrolytes responsible for the rhythm of the heart. So pag mababa ang level ng potassium, pwede maapektuhan yung heart rhythm natin, which may lead to arrhythmias. You also have constipation, so also polyuria, increased urine production, okay, and also sensitivity to insulin, which may lead to hypoglycemia. Okay, so for the diagnosis, again, blood test pa rin ginagawa natin to determine the level of potassium in the blood, kung ito ba ay mataas or mababa, to determine or assess the severity of hypokalemia. Okay, tinitingnan natin yung dugo for the levels of potassium. You also have your ECG or EKG, again, para malaman natin if there already a presence of arrhythmia. For clinical assessment, check for the presence of the signs of symptoms sa pinag-usapan natin kanina to determine if there is already a presence of potassium imbalance. For the treatment, of course, since this is hypokalemia, mababa ang level ng potassium, so we have to give potassium supplements. Both oral or intravenous potassium supplements to raise potassium levels. So, any of the two or even both. So, you also have to do adjustment of medication if hypokalemia is related to medications used. Adjustments may be made to the treatment plan. For example, if a patient is taking an antibiotic or corticosteroids that may cause hypokalemia, pwedeng i-adjust yun. Okay? For the nursing intervention naman, number 1, monitor electrolytes, so regular assessment of potassium level, and even under electrolytes, tinitingnan natin, hindi lang yung potassium. You also have to monitor the cardiovascular system through your ECG. We are looking for signs of arrhythmias. So you also have your oral or intravenous potassium administration, so administration of potassium supplements as prescribed, and also patient education, so providing information on dietary sources of potassium and the importance of medication adherence. Now, for the complications, so again, andyan pa rin si arrhythmia. So severe hypokalemia can lead to dangerous cardiac arrhythmias, so muscle weakness and paralysis. In extreme cases, severe hypokalemia can result in muscle weakness and also paralysis, and even respiratory failure. Pag nagkakaroon tayo ng severe muscle weakness, pati yung mga respiratory muscles natin such as your diaphragm, pwede maapektuhan yan, which may result in respiratory failure. Okay, let's talk about calcium naman, no? Calcium imbalances. Let's start off with hypercalcemia. So same as before, so hypercalcemia is condition characterized by elevated levels of calcium in the blood. So one thing to take note about calcium, isa sa mga physiological processes niya includes bone health and blood clotting. So take note of that, ano? Aside from that, ginagamit din natin siya for nerve function and muscle contraction, ano? So hypercalcemia can actually disrupt these functions and lead to a range of symptoms and also other complications. So, what are the possible causes of hypercalcemia? Number one dito, yung tinatawag natin na hyperparathyroidism. Kasi yung overactivity of the parathyroid glands increases parathyroid glands leading to increased calcium release from the bones. Kasi yung calcium natin, alam naman natin, nasa buto yan. Okay, at pag nagkaroon tayo ng increase ng hyperparathyroidism, nag-release ito ng hormone kung saan sinasabihan niya yung buto na mag-release ng calcium. At saan pupunta yung calcium na yun? Sa dugo, which can increase the level of calcium in the blood, leading to hypercalcemia. You also have malignancy, cancer, ano? So there are certain types of cancers, especially those affecting the parathyroid, the lung, the breast, and the kidney can actually cause hypercalcemia. No? So certain medications also can cause hypercalcemia, such as your thiazide diuretics, okay, and even vitamin D supplementation can cause hypercalcemia. Immobilization, hindi ka gumagalaw, ano? Prolonged bed rest or immobilization can lead to calcium loss from bones. So meaning, pag hindi mo ginagamit yung buto mo due to immobilization, mag-shed out ng calcium yan. Yung calcium pupunta doon sa dugo, causing hypercalcemia. Okay, so another one, aside from hyperparathyroidism, hyperthyroidism also can cause hypercalcemia. No? So overactive thyroid function can contribute to elevated calcium levels. No? You also have yung granulomatous diseases, such as, for example, halimbawa, tuberculosis. Kasi tuberculosis can also lead to the formation of granulomas, which may increase calcium levels. Dehydration, so reduced fluid intake. Ito naman, hindi ka umiinom ng tubig, pwedeng tumaas ang concentration ang concentration ng calcium sa dugo, which can lead to hypercalcemia. So what are the symptoms of hypercalcemia? So you have your generalized weakness and fatigue. Sa muscle na naman siya kasi nga muscle conduction, ano? Okay, so you also have aching or pain in the bones. Okay, di ba? Calcium yan, no? Often affecting the back and the ribs. So, pag gastrointestinal symptoms naman, may include nausea, vomiting, and even constipation also. Okay? So, you also have polyuria and polydipsia. Polyuria, increased urine production, and polydipsia, increased thirst. There is also confusion and cognitive impairment, mental status, confusion, impairment. I've also told about constipation also as one of the symptoms of hypercalcemia. For the diagnosis, again, blood test na naman, determining the level of calcium in the blood para malaman natin if there's already a presence of hypercalcemia or to assess the severity of hypercalcemia. You also have your PTH level, okay, or parathyroid hormone test, measurement of PTH level to determine that the hypercalcemia is related to primary hyperthyroidism. Kasi sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, pag merong hyperparathyroidism, mataas yung parathyroid hormone, which in turn can cause the release of calcium from the bone, pupunta sa dugo, tataas ang calcium hypercalcemia. Okay? So you also have to conduct a kidney function test. So assessment of the kidney function, as hypercalcemia can affect renal function also. Okay, and imaging studies, so X-ray, CT scans, or bone scans may be performed to identify any underlying bone abnormalities because we're talking about calcium. No? For the treatment, you have fluid replacement, so intravenous hydration with saline to promote calcium excretion by the kidneys, meaning kailangan natin palitan yung tubig na nawawala para tumaas yung level of excretion ng calcium in the kidneys. You also, for the medication naman, gumagamit tayo ng biphosphonates, okay, to inhibit bone reabsorption and lower calcium level. Calcitonin is also given to reduce calcium level for short term. Okay, short term decrease of calcium level, calcitonin pwede ibigay. For the nursing intervention, so regular assessment of serum calcium levels, so monitor the calcium levels of the patient. There should be proper hydration and encouraging adequate fluid intake to promote calcium increase. So, monitoring kidney function din, regular assessment of kidney function. And of course, again, hindi pa rin nawawala yung ating patient education. Now, for the complications, so ano ba ang possible complications pag merong hypercalcemia? Number one, kidney stones. Okay, hypercalcemia increases the risk of kidney stone formation. You also have renal dysfunction. Severe hypercalcemia can lead to impaired renal function. Pwede maapektuhan yung kidney. And cardiac arrhythmias in extreme cases naman. Hindi naman siya kagaya ng ng potassium, ano. Pero hypercalcemia can also lead to cardiac arrhythmias in extremely high levels. Yung sobrang taas ng level ng calcium, pwede niya maapektuhan yung heart rhythm. Naman, so hypocalcemia naman is characterized by a lower than normal level of calcium in the blood. So as I've told you before, calcium is a crucial mineral that plays a vital role in various physiological processes including bone healthcare, nerve function, muscle contraction, and even blood clotting. Okay, so pag mababa ang hypocalcemia, it can lead to a range of symptoms and also complications. So what are the possible causes of hypocalcemia? So you have kanina hyperparathyroidism para sa hypercalcemia. Ngayon naman hypoparathyroidism naman. Ano? So insufficient production of parathyroid hormone, yung PTH, which regulates calcium level. Pag mababa yung level nun, possibly bumaba ang level ng calcium din sa dugo. Okay, so you also have vitamin D deficiency. So, inadequate vitamin D necessary for calcium absorption in the intestine. Pag wala nito, pag kulang nito, pwede magkaroon ng hypocalcemia. Renal failure, impaired kidney functions can affect calcium excretion and also metabolism, which can in turn cause hypocalcemia. Okay, so malabsorption disorder, kagaya ng celiac disease or other inflammatory bowel diseases can also interfere with calcium absorption, okay, in the gastrointestinal system. You also have acute pancreatitis. Pag merong acute pancreatitis kasi, nagkakaroon ng tinatawag natin ng calcium sequestration, meaning pwedeng bumaba ang level ng calcium sa dugo. Alkalosis, okay, conditions that result in increased pH can lead to decreased ionized calcium also. Blood transfusion, ito naman temporary lang, ano. So when we conduct blood transfusion kasi yung dugo, meron tinatawag na citrate. Okay, so yung citrate na yun can bind to the calcium causing temporary hypocalcemia. After naman ng blood transfusion at tumikris na yung level ng citrate, babalik naman na yan sa normal. Okay, so what are the symptoms? So pag calcium kasi most likely mga muscle cramps and spasm. Yan. Ano yan? Pag hypocalcemia, muscle cramps and spasm, evident yan, ano? So you also have your tingling and numbness yung tusok-tusok. Okay, meron din tayong tinatawag na Bostek sign. Bostek sign, yung twitching of the face. Pag tinap yung face, parang gumana. Yan. Pag tinatap yan. Yan. That's Bostek signs. You also have Trousseau sign. Pag Trousseau sign naman, nagkakaroon ng carpal spasm. Parang gumaganyan yung kamay. Pag nag-introduce ka ng blood cuff dito, ng blood pressure cuff, okay, dito, and then pinump mo yon yung kamay niya, magka-carpal spasm. Ganyan. That's Trousseau sign. Okay, so yung dalawa na yun, Bostek and Trousseau, yung tinatawag natin na pwede cause ng tetany. Okay, so seizure, severe hypocalcemia can also lead to seizure. You also have cardiac arrhythmia. So hypocalcemia can also affect the electrical conduction of the heart, leading to arrhythmias. For the diagnosis, again, blood test pa rin para malaman natin yung severity. Presence and severity of hypocalcemia, determining the level of calcium of the blood. Okay, so you also have your ionized calcium test. So, minemeasure natin yung ionized calcium, the biologically active form. You also have your PTH level test. I-assess natin kung yung level ng parathyroid hormone, kung ito ba ay mataas o mababa. Pag mababa kasi, kagaya ng binanggit ko, it can be an indication of hypercalcemia. So vitamin D level, measurement of vitamin D levels to assess its role in calcium absorption. So like I've said before, vitamin D helps in the absorption of calcium in the gastrointestinal tract. Pag konti ang vitamin D, pwedeng mababa ang absorption of calcium leading to hypocalcemia. Okay, so electrocardiogram, ECG, again, because there's a possibility that the patient may suffer from cardiac arrhythmias due to hypocalcemia. So we have to monitor it using ECG. Okay, for the treatment, again, hypocalcemia, so kailangan natin ng supplement, ano? Either oral or intravenous administration of calcium supplements. Not just calcium, pwede rin tayo magbigay ng vitamin D if ang cause ng hypocalcemia niya is vitamin D deficiency. Pwede tayo magbigay ng vitamin D supplement. Okay, for the nursing intervention, so monitoring of the calcium levels, okay, through blood test natin kanina. So pagbibigay natin ng calcium supplements as prescribed. Okay, observing for signs of tetany, yung dalawang binanggit ko, yung Vostex and Trousseau sign, Vostex and Trousseau, yan. So, those are the signs of tetany. And of course, patient education, providing information on dietary sources of calcium and vitamin D. Okay, so what are the possible complications? So you have severe hypocalcemia, increase the risk of seizure. Pwede magkaroon ng seizure ang pasyente dyan. Hypocalcemia can affect heart rhythm, which in turn can cause cardiac arrhythmias. And of course, yung tetany, na binanggit natin kanina, prolonged muscle contraction, yung tinatawag natin na tetany, can be uncomfortable and lead to muscle weakness. Okay, let's now talk about the imbalances related to magnesium. So again, dalawang klase yan, hypo and hyper. Okay, so what's so special about magnesium? Electrolyte ng magnesium kasi, ang role nito is nerve function, muscle contraction, and yung special sa kanya is the regulation of blood pressure. Let's talk about hypermagnesemia. So pag sinabi mong hypermagnesemia is a condition characterized by elevated levels of magnesium in the blood. Mataas ang level ng magnesium sa dugo. Because of this, yung mga functions niya, pwedeng maapektuhan yan. Okay? So, ano ang mga probable causes of hypermagnesemia? So, una, you have renal insufficiency. So, impaired kidney function can lead to decreased excretion of magnesium resulting in sa communication in the blood. Meaning, pag may depresya yung kidney, lagi naman yan, ano? Pag may depresya yung kidney, nagkakaroon tayo ngayon ng retention, okay, ng mga electrolytes natin, like your magnesium. Kaya pag ganun, hindi natin na-eliminate, tumataas ang level ng magnesium. Okay? So, you also have excessive magnesium intake. Pag nagtitake ng magnesium supplement na sobrahan, okay, overconsumption, also medications that contain magnesium can also cause hypermagnesemia. You also have intravenous magnesium administration. Rapid or excessive administration of magnesium-containing IV fluids or medications can cause hypermagnesemia. Okay, another cause of hypermagnesemia is your adrenal insufficiency. Conditions affecting the adrenal glands such as Addison's disease can also contribute to hypermagnesemia. Hypothyroidism, ayun, underactive thyroid function may lead to impaired magnesium secretion also. Okay, which in turn can lead to hypermagnesemia. Okay, so symptoms of hypermagnesemia, generalized weakness and lethargy, muscle weakness. You also have nausea and vomiting, gastrointestinal symptoms niya. No? You also have sensation of warmth and flushing, especially in the face. Parang nagbablush niya, namumula yung muka, umiinit yung pakiramdam ng muka. Okay, so parang siya nagbablush. Okay, so that may be an indication of hypermagnesemia. Okay, so you also have hypotension, low blood pressure. As I've told you before, the magnesium is related in regulating blood pressure. So pag mataas ang level ng magnesium, possible na mag-cause to ng hypotension. Okay, so respiratory depression, severe hypermagnesemia can also lead to respiratory depression. Okay, and even cardiac arrest on extremely high magnesium levels lang naman. Pag masyadong mataas yung level ng magnesium, pwede ito mag-cause ng arrhythmia, and then in turn can cause cardiac arrest. Okay? So for the diagnosis, hindi pa rin nawawala, blood test para malaman natin yung kung merong presence ng hypermagnesemia and to also assess the severity of hypermagnesemia. For the clinical assessments, evaluation ng symptoms and signs related to magnesium imbalances. And since that the heart or the conduction system of the heart can be affected with high levels of magnesium, we also try to do an electrocardiogram, okay, ECG or EKG. Okay, so for the treatment, calcium administration. So intravenous administration of calcium gluconate or calcium chloride to counteract the effects of elevated magnesium levels. Si calcium kasi sa si magnesium parang kontrapelo sila, no? They kontra sila sa isa't isa. So pag mataas ang level ng magnesium mo, nagbibigay tayo ng calcium para bumababa ang level ng magnesium. Pag naman mataas ang level ng calcium, nagbibigay tayo ng magnesium para bumaba ang level ng calcium. So silang dalawa yung gamot sa isa't isa. Okay, so diuretics can also be given. So diuretic medication will be used to increase magnesium excretion by the kidneys para mailabas yung excess magnesium in the blood. And in severe cases, pwede tayo mag-conduct ng dialysis to remove excess magnesium from the body. Lalo na kung hirap na yung kidney. Okay, for the nursing interventions, so we have to monitor magnesium levels regularly. Okay, so kaya nga may blood test kanina, no? So we have to monitor it regularly. So we have to also observe for symptoms, frequent monitoring for symptoms of hypermagnesemia, especially individual with risk factors. So balikan nyo yung signs and symptoms natin kanina, laging imo-monitor yon if there is a presence of signs and symptoms. And of course, as part of the treatment, calcium administration, assisting with administration of calcium as prescribed. For the complication, there is a possibility of respiratory depression because severe hypermagnesia can lead to respiratory depression, which may require mechanical ventilation in severe cases lang naman. Ano? Again, in severe cases, it can cause cardiac arrest on extremely high magnesium levels. Okay, so neuromuscular impairment, muscle weakness, impaired reflexes also can be present, or a complication rather of your hypermagnesemia. Okay, let's proceed with hypomagnesemia naman, ano? So, hypomagnesemia is a condition characterized by lower than normal levels of magnesium in the blood. Okay, mababa naman yung magnesium. So, kanina pinag-usapan natin hypermagnesemia. Okay, ngayon naman yung mababa yung level ng magnesium. So, what are the possible causes of hypomagnesemia? So, you have inadequate dietary intake, meaning you're only eating diet low in magnesium containing foods. Okay, so you also have your gastrointestinal disorders such as malabsorption syndrome, celiac disease, and inflammatory bowel diseases, which can lead to magnesium deficiency pag hindi na-absorb ng maayos sa gastrointestinal tract mo yung nutrients and electrolytes such as magnesium. Alcoholism, chronic alcohol consumption can also contribute to magnesium depletion. Okay, so renal disorder naman, so impaired kidney function can result in increased urinary loss of magnesium, meaning, let's say the patient is suffering from diuresis, ihi siya ng ihi. Because of that, na-eliminate yung magnesium, which can cause a decreased level of magnesium in the blood. Okay, so some medications, including diuretics and proton pump inhibitors, and even certain types of antibiotics may lead also to magnesium loss. So, another one, probable cause is yung parathyroid disorder. So, conditions affecting the parathyroid glands can actually influence magnesium metabolism. So, what are the symptoms of hypomagnesemia? So, ganun pa rin, ano? Kagaya pa rin ng iba nating electrolyte imbalances. So, there is muscle weakness pa rin, and sometimes there can be muscle twitching. Excuse me. There is also tremors or fine tremors, especially in the hands. There is also seizure in severe cases of hypomagnesemia. Pwede magkaroon siya ng seizures. Okay, so fatigue, generalized weakness and fatigue is also present pag merong hypomagnesemia. Sa gastrointestinal symptoms naman, possible, pwede siya magkaroon ng nausea and vomiting. And of course, again, in some cases, pwede magkaroon pa rin ng arrhythmias pag ang pasyente ay nakaka-experience ng hypomagnesemia. Okay, for the diagnosis, blood test. Okay, to determine the presence of hypomagnesemia and also to assess the severity ng hypomagnesemia. For the clinical assessment, so we have to check for the presence of the signs and symptoms related to magnesium imbalances. And of course, para malaman natin if there's already a presence of arrhythmias, we have to conduct ECG or electrocardiogram. For the treatment, since na mababa ang level of magnesium, we have to give magnesium supplement as ordered. Okay, so it's either oral or intravenous administration of magnesium supplement to correct deficiencies. So, okay, and of course, we have to address the underlying possible causes. So, for example, halimbawa, addressing gastrointestinal disorder, example, celiac disease, o yung mga malabsorption syndrome, we can address that, we can treat that, para matreat natin indirectly din yung hypomagnesemia. Okay, for the nursing intervention, so monitoring magnesium levels through blood tests. So observing for signs and symptoms of the presence of hypomagnesemia, and of course, assisting with magnesium administration also. Okay, so for the possible complication, there can be severe hypomagnesemia. Severe hypomagnesemia may increase the risk of patient suffering from seizure. So we have to take a look at that also. Okay, hypomagnesemia can affect heart rhythm, which in turn can cause cardiac arrhythmias. And of course, Prolonged magnesium deficiency may lead to muscle weakness also. Imbalances naman, so particularly yung hypophosphatemia. So basically, phosphate is an essential electrolyte that plays a crucial role in various physiological processes, including bone health. So they work hand in hand with calcium, energy metabolism, and also yung acid-base balance. So hyperphosphatemia is actually a condition characterized by elevated levels of phosphate in the blood. So if there is an imbalance of phosphate in our blood, of course, it can lead to disturbances of the same physiological processes. So what are the causes of hyperphosphatemia? So number one is yung chronic kidney disease. Again, related na naman tayo kay kidney. Kasi sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, if there is a kidney malfunction or dysfunction, pwede itong mag-cause ng retention ng electrolytes sa dugo natin kasi hindi natin na-eliminate. So one of those electrolytes, of course, is phosphate. So you also have hypoparathyroidism, so insufficient production of parathyroid hormone, which normally helps regulate phosphate levels. Pag mababa ang level nito, hindi niya nare-regulate yung phosphate level, which can in turn increase the level of phosphate in the blood. So excessive phosphate intake, consuming large amounts of phosphate-containing foods or even supplements can cause hyperphosphatemia. You also have what we call tumor lysis syndrome. Pag yung tumor lysis syndrome is rapid breakdown of cancer cells. So, pag nagkakaroon tayo ng rapid breakdown of cancer cells, nag-release ito ng large amount of phosphate into the bloodstream. Okay? So, you also have rhabdomyolysis. So, breakdown of muscle tissue which can release also phosphate in the blood. Certain medications such as those containing laxatives or enemas can contribute to elevated phosphate levels. Okay, acidosis. Okay, pwede ito mag-cause ng hyperphosphatemia. So, this condition that result is that can shift phosphate from cells into the bloodstream. Pwedeng lumipat pag acidosis, so yung phosphate na nandun sa cells, pwedeng lumipat doon sa ating bloodstream causing hyperphosphatemia. So what are the symptoms? So you have neuromuscular symptoms including muscle cramp and weakness. Okay? So you also have joint pain. Okay? So meron din tayong tinatawag na pruritus or itching kasi nagkakaroon ng calcium phosphate crystals dun sa balat natin. Na-irritate yung balat, pwedeng mag-cause ng itching or pruritus. You also have soft tissue calcifications. So since nagkakaroon ng deposition of calcium phosphate crystals in the soft tissues leading it to calcify mga soft tissues natin. And of course, there is also nausea and vomiting. Okay, so for the diagnosis, hindi nawawala pa rin yung blood test natin para makita natin yung level ng phosphate sa dugo para malaman natin kung yung severity of hypophosphatemia also. Okay, aside from the level of ng phosphate, tinitingnan din natin yung calcium levels. Why? Assessment of serum calcium level, as imbalances in calcium and phosphates are closely linked. Parang pag may depresya si calcium, malamang pati si phosphate nagkakaroon din ng imbalances. Kaya si calcium tinitingnan din. So yung PTH natin, tinitingnan din natin, yung parathyroid hormone. Para malaman natin if hypophosphatemia is actually related to a parathyroid dysfunction. So you also have renal function test, so evaluation of kidney function, as impaired renal excretion is a common cause of hyperphosphatemia. So renal functioning, tinitingnan natin, okay? PU and CREA, we check natin. Okay? So how do you treat hypophosphatemia? So treatment, we do it by treatment of underlying causes. Okay, so such as yung managing of chronic kidney diseases or even adjusting medications that leads to hypophosphatemia. Okay, so pwede rin tayo dito magbigay ng phosphate bonding medications din to prevent absorption of your phosphate. For the nursing intervention, so monitoring of phosphate levels pa rin through blood tests. So we can also give calcium supplementation sa pasyente natin to decrease the level of phosphate. So phosphate restriction, bawal muna yung mga pagkain na mataas sa phosphate, and also administering phosphate bonding medication can also as prescribed. Okay? So for the complications, so possible na magkaroon ng soft tissue calcification, sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina. There is also a possible of cardiovascular complications, so hyperphosphatemia associated with increased risk of cardiovascular events in individual with chronic kidney diseases. So imbalances in phosphate and calcium levels can also affect the bone. Okay, now let's talk about hypophosphatemia. So hypophosphatemia is a condition characterized by lower than normal levels of phosphate in the blood. So what are the probable causes of hypophosphatemia? Number one is malnutrition. So inadequate dietary intake of phosphate, often seen in conditions of severe malnutrition, can cause hypophosphatemia also. Yung another cause is yung malabsorption disorders natin such as celiac disease or inflammatory bowel diseases possibly can cause a disruption in the absorption of your phosphate, which in turn can cause hypophosphatemia. Chronic alcohol consumption also can contribute to hypophosphatemia and something that we call refeeding syndrome. So pag sinabi natin refeeding syndrome, it's rapid feeding after a period of malnutrition. So if a patient is experiencing malnutrition at bigla natin sila pinakain ng madami, it can lead dun sa tinatawag natin na refeeding syndrome. So what happens is, pag ginawa natin yun, the phosphate on the blood can shift back into the cells. So therefore, it can cause a decreased level of phosphate in the blood, causing hypophosphatemia. Okay, another cause is yung hyperparathyroidism. So, overactivity of the parathyroid glands can lead to increased phosphate excretion by the kidneys, causing hypophosphatemia. So, you also have diabetic ketoacidosis. So, can shift phosphate into the cells also. So, pag merong DKA or diabetic ketoacidosis, what happens is, yung phosphate doon sa blood, pwede siyang bumalik doon sa cells, causing a decreased level of phosphate in the blood, causing hypophosphatemia. So also some certain medications such as your antacids at saka yung mga medications na nagko-contain ng aluminum can also contribute to the decreased phosphate levels. Okay, for the signs and symptoms of your hypophosphatemia, so you have muscle weakness and fatigue, meron din siyang ball pain, and also respiratory and cardiac failure on severe cases of hypophosphatemia. Okay, so aside from that, you also have confusion and irritability, okay, and also difficulty of swallowing because of impaired muscle function of the throat. Kaya nagkakaroon ng difficulty of swallowing. Okay, for the diagnosis, blood test. So sa blood test, tinitingnan natin. Ano yung tinitingnan natin na yun? Una muna, syempre, is the level of phosphate to assess the severity of hypophosphatemia. Pangalawa, yung level of calcium, kasi yung serum calcium level are closely linked to hypophosphatemia also. And the third na tinitingnan natin is yung magnesium. So evaluation of magnesium levels, as magnesium deficiency can also contribute to hypophosphatemia. Pag mababa yung magnesium, possible na mababa rin ang phosphate. Okay, so for the treatment, so we have to treat the underlying causes, okay, such as yung improving nutritional intake and also adjusting medications such as antacids. Okay, ina-adjust natin yan para maiwasan natin yung hypophosphatemia. And of course, nagbibigay rin tayo ng phosphate supplementation, either oral or intravenous. Okay? For the nursing intervention, so monitoring of phosphate levels. Okay, so phosphate supplementation administration, meaning we have to assist in administering phosphate supplements sa pasyente natin as prescribed. And of course, monitoring for possible signs of symptoms of hypophosphatemia. Okay, for possible complications, so there is respiratory and cardiac failure. So severe hypophosphatemia can actually lead to respiratory and cardiac failure. So impaired neurological functions can lead also to confusion, irritability, and of course, prolonged hypophosphatemia can also lead to muscle weakness. Okay, so that's it. That ends our discussions about fluids and electrolyte imbalances. So I hope that you've learned something, and I hope to see you again. Thank you for watching and listening.